Elvis Presley was supposed to be invisible that afternoon, just a blur on a highway outside Memphis. But when he saw a little girl sobbing on a dusty sidewalk, he hit the brakes of his motorcycle. What he quietly placed in her hands that day would follow her for the rest of her life. Stay with this story until the end, because the gift wasn't money, and it wasn't an autograph, yet it became valuable enough to change more than one life. It was August 18, 1975, just outside Memphis, Tennessee, when Elvis took that short ride away from Graceland. The heat pressed down like a heavy hand, turning the air into slow-moving waves above the asphalt. The highway shimmered as if it were made of molten silver. His Harley rumbled beneath him, low and steady, the sound echoing off the quiet houses lined up like spectators. He wore a simple denim jacket and dark sunglasses. No spotlight, no stage, just the wind pushing against him and the gentle thud of tires rolling across sun-baked pavement. To everyone else, he was a rumor passing by, a blur, a maybe it was him moment they'd talk about at dinner. Behind him, Sonny West trailed in a dusty black sedan, keeping a respectful distance. The windows were cracked open. A little radio hissed faintly. Even Sonny could feel how tense Elvis had been lately. Too many shows, too many voices, too many demands. This ride was supposed to clear his head. In the neighborhoods they passed, kids ran through sprinklers, water splashing over bare feet and turning sidewalks slick and bright. Some parents sat on porches with cold tea glasses, fanning themselves. A few pointed at the motorcycle, unsure if the man on it was who they thought he was. Most didn't bother guessing. It was Memphis. Elvis sightings were as common as stories about him. But even with the peace of the open road, Elvis couldn't shake a quiet thought. Who was he when nobody was watching? Was he still the king if there was no crown, no cameras, no applause? Or was he just a tired man riding away from the noise for a moment of air? A warm breeze tugged at his collar. He breathed deeper, letting the world stretch out in front of him. For the first time that day, his shoulders loosened. The sound of the engine became almost comforting, like a familiar old song he didn't have to think about. A block later, he slowed slightly. The houses grew smaller here, closer together, paint peeling under the sun. A sagging basketball hoop leaned in a driveway. A dog barked behind a chain-link fence. It was an ordinary street with ordinary problems. But sometimes, ordinary places hide moments that stay with you forever. Elvis glanced at a group of boys pushing toy cars through the dirt, their laughter echoing down the block. One boy paused and squinted at the motorcycle, but Elvis dipped his head and rode on. He wanted to be unseen today, just for an hour. Just long enough to remember breathing didn't have to be loud. Then came a sound that cut right through the hum of the engine. A sharp, trembling cry. He didn't know where it came from at first. Children cry every day. But something about this one, raw, desperate, shaking, made his hands tighten on the handlebars. Pain like that didn't come from scraped knees or a lost toy. Came from deeper places. The cry came again. Elvis slowed. Then he heard it a third time, and something inside him shifted. He couldn't ride past. Not this. Maybe because he knew what it felt like when your world cracked. Maybe because even kings understand the sound of a breaking heart. He rolled off the throttle. The motorcycle growled, then softened. He turned his head left. And there it was, a small house, a dusty sidewalk, and a little girl sobbing alone. He wasn't invisible anymore. Elvis eased the bike to the side of the road, gravel cracking beneath the tires. The engine rumbled low, then faded into a heavy silence as he switched it off. For a moment, all he heard was the slow ticking of the hot metal cooling under the sun. Then there it was again, that same cry, thin, shaken, breaking at the edges. He slipped off his helmet, letting his hair fall messy across his forehead. A warm wind brushed past him, carrying the faint smell of cut grass and someone grilling 2 streets over. But beyond those normal summer sounds, the crying kept pulling him in. The little girl sat on the curb, small shoulders trembling. Dust clung to her legs. A broken cardboard box rested beside her, its flap torn. A few cheap plastic toys scattered in the gutter. One of them, a tiny blue car, teetered near the storm drain, as if deciding whether to fall in. Her name, he'd learn later, was Emily Carter. 7 years old. Big brown eyes. Hair pulled into a crooked ponytail. The kind of child who looked like she'd been brave for too long. Elvis felt his chest tighten. Behind him, the black sedan rolled to a stop. Sonny West stepped out, sunglasses on, scanning the neighborhood like he expected a news crew to jump out from behind a tree. "Elvis, you all right?" Sonny asked quietly. Elvis ignored the question. His eyes stayed locked on the girl. Sometimes a single moment grabs you by the heart. Sometimes a stranger's pain feels like something you already understand. Why does one voice break through when the world is full of noise? Why do we stop for certain people? He took a slow step forward. The girl didn't look up. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing dust into her tears. Her breathing hitched, sharp and uneven. Elvis crouched a little, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey, honey, you hurt?" She didn't even recognize the voice. She just shook her head quickly and hugged her knees tighter. The cardboard box shifted and another small toy rolled out, hitting his boot before bouncing to the pavement. From inside the house came the muffled sound of a woman yelling on the phone. Words too jumbled to understand, but loud enough to know something wasn't right. The kind of call where bills were overdue, patience was gone, and life felt heavier than a person could carry alone. Elvis took another step closer. Her crying grew softer but didn't stop. The wind pushed a little swirl of dust across the sidewalk. The sun pressed down harder. A dog barked somewhere far off. Everything felt frozen except for her tears. He removed his sunglasses. "Sweetheart," he murmured. "You're all right? Promise. Just tell me what's wrong." For a full 5 seconds, she didn't move. Then she finally looked up. And that's when it hit him. She didn't scream. She didn't gasp. She didn't blink twice or whisper his name the way children usually did. She just stared at him, eyes wet, face trembling, but not shocked, not excited, not even curious, just hurt. Sonny stepped closer, whispering urgently, "Elvis, we shouldn't stay long. This area." Elvis held up a hand, stopping him cold without even looking back. The girl wiped her nose with her sleeve. Her voice came out in a tiny crack. "I dropped it." He leaned in. "Dropped what, honey?" She pointed weakly at the box. My daddy's things." A car drove past slowly, the driver squinting, probably wondering if he had just seen Elvis Presley kneeling on a sidewalk beside a crying child. But Elvis didn't care. Not today. He lowered himself to sit on the curb so he was eye level with her. "What happened?" he asked softly. Her lip quivered. Her fingers twisted into her shirt. Behind them, Sonny muttered under his breath. He knew that tone in Elvis's voice. It meant they weren't leaving anytime soon. The little girl swallowed hard. And her answer, simple, fragile, true, would change the entire mood of that quiet street. She took one shaky breath. "He left. And this was all I had." Elvis felt the words hit him like a physical blow. He knew that kind of loneliness. He knew it too well. And the moment she said it, he understood. This wasn't a small problem. This was a breaking heart. And it wasn't going to heal on its own. Elvis shifted slightly on the curb, the heat rising off the pavement in soft ripples. Emily's tiny voice still echoed in his ears. "He left. And this was all I had." He glanced at the torn box again. Cheap toys, scuffed plastic animals, a broken keychain. Things worth pennies. But to her, they were everything. A screen door slammed. Linda Carter hurried out of the house, holding a phone in one hand and frustration in the other. Her eyes were red, her hair tangled, and worry seemed to cling to her like the heat. "Emily, I told you to stay inside." She stopped mid-sentence. Her gaze locked on Elvis. For a second, her brain refused to process what her eyes were seeing. Elvis Presley, standing, no, kneeling on her sidewalk, beside her daughter, looking up gently like a neighbor checking on a child. She blinked twice, like she was afraid he might disappear if she stared too hard. "Oh my, Mr. Presley? I'm so sorry. I didn't know." Her voice cracked with embarrassment. Elvis raised a hand kindly. "It's all right, ma'am. She just looks like she could use a friend for a minute. Linda covered her mouth with her hand, overwhelmed. Life hadn't been offering her many breaks lately. Bills, phone calls, promises that never came through. And now this Elvis Presley somehow looking more concerned for her child than anyone had in weeks. Behind them, Sonny West scanned the street like a hawk. His jaw was tight. He knew this was risky. One curious neighbor, one loud whisper, one phone call, and suddenly this quiet moment could turn into a crowd of 50 people swarming the lawn. Fame didn't knock when it arrived. Crashed. Elvis? Sonny muttered through clenched teeth. We need to be careful. But Elvis didn't move. He didn't even pretend to be in a hurry. He simply turned back to the little girl. Emily sniffed, wiping her cheeks with the back of her hand. She had stopped shaking, but her sadness still sat heavy on her shoulders. Elvis shifted so he could look her directly in the eyes. Sweetheart, he asked softly, what happened to your daddy's things? Emily hesitated. Her breath trembled. She stared down at the broken box. Linda knelt beside them, her hands fluttering helplessly over the torn cardboard. She fell, she explained softly. The box broke open. Some of the toys, well, some went down the drain. Her voice broke. She's been holding on to that box like it was the only part of him left. Elvis felt something inside him tighten. He knew this kind of hurt. He had seen it in fans backstage, in kids who showed up shaking because they felt unwanted at home. He had felt it himself. Those long childhood nights when poverty pressed close and love felt too thin. Why do some children carry heartbreak like adults? Why do some tiny shoulders hold weights meant for grown men? Emily looked up again, eyes wet but determined. I tried to hold it, she whispered. But it broke. Sonny shifted uneasily. He recognized the look on Elvis's face. It was the same look Elvis got when someone told him a story that cut too close to his own bones. Sir, Sonny tried again, quieter this time. You know how this could go if people start noticing. Elvis didn't answer. He didn't even blink. He reached out and gently lifted one of the little toys from the gutter. A cracked plastic horse with faded paint. He brushed the dust off it with a tenderness that made Linda swallow hard. Things break, he murmured. But that doesn't mean they're gone. Emily watched him, confused but calmer now. The wind shifted again, rustling the leaves above them. Far down the street, a dog barked twice, rapid and sharp. A screen door somewhere slammed shut. The world kept moving, unaware that something quiet and important was happening on this tiny patch of sidewalk. Elvis set the toy gently back into the box. Then Emily whispered the sentence that froze him in place. She said he might not come back. Elvis looked up slowly. Linda's eyes filled. I didn't mean to say it in front of her. I was angry. But Elvis wasn't listening to Linda now. He was looking at Sonny. And for the first time that afternoon, Sonny saw something in Elvis's expression he almost never saw in public. Fear. Not for himself. For the child. For her heart. For what she might carry forever if someone didn't step in. For a moment, nobody spoke. The heat, the dust, the faint buzz of cicadas. It all seemed to fall still around them. Elvis sat on the curb, feeling the weight of Emily's words sink like a stone into the quiet. She said he might not come back. Linda's face flushed with regret. I shouldn't have said it. I was angry. I didn't think she heard me. She looked down, ashamed. She hears everything. Emily hugged her knees again, knuckles white, as if the world might slip away if she loosened her grip. The torn box lay between them, its flap fluttering slightly in the warm wind. Elvis touched the edge of the cardboard gently. Honey, he said, tell me what happened. Emily didn't look up right away. She fiddled with the loose thread on her shirt sleeve, breathing hard through her nose. Then she placed her hand on the broken box. My daddy said he'd be gone for a little while, she whispered. He said he'd send me something special if I was brave. Her lip trembled. I waited. Every day I waited. And the only thing he left was this box. Elvis glanced at Linda. She nodded sadly. He left 3 weeks ago, she said softly. Said he needed time. He hasn't called. Emily swallowed. So I kept it safe. I kept it with me everywhere. 'Cause it was the only thing that wasn't leaving. The sentence landed like a blow. Elvis felt it in his gut. He remembered nights as a child when his own father was far away, working odd jobs, gone longer than expected. He remembered the fear, the silence, the wondering if he had done something wrong. And now, decades later, that same ache was staring at him through the eyes of a 7-year-old girl. The sun pressed hotter. A lawnmower buzzed in the distance. A neighbor's screen door creaked, but all of it felt muffled, like sound underwater. "What happened to the box, sweetheart?" he asked gently. Emily looked at the gutter, eyes filling again. "I tripped," she said. "I was running to show Mama I cleaned my room. I tripped right there." She pointed at a crack in the sidewalk. It fell. The toys went everywhere. Some went down there. She pointed again at the storm drain. Her voice crumbled. "I tried to grab them. I tried." A tiny gasp cut from her chest. "But I broke it," she whispered. "I broke the only thing that wasn't leaving." Elvis felt something inside him twist. The sentence was too big for someone so small. Too heavy. Too grown. Why do children blame themselves for the choices adults make? Why do they believe their worth depends on someone staying? Emily wiped her face again, smearing tears with dust. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Elvis blinked. "Sorry?" he said softly. "Why are you sorry?" "Because if I kept it safe." Her breath shook. "Maybe he'd come back." The words tore through him. Sonny shifted behind them, looking away as if giving the moment privacy. Even he felt it. Linda put a hand on her daughter's back, but Emily barely reacted. Her world had shrunk to a broken box, a storm drain, and the fear of being forgotten. Elvis placed his hand lightly on the box. "Sweetheart," he murmured. "A box doesn't bring someone back." Emily looked up slowly, her eyes wide, terrified to hear the truth. "But," Elvis added, voice gentler than the breeze, "the right thing, at the right time, can help you remember you matter." Emily blinked, confused. Elvis stood. Sonny watched him closely. He knew that look. A decision had been made. Elvis walked back toward his motorcycle, boots crunching softly over gravel. The wind lifted a strand of his hair. His jacket rustled. He reached the bike, paused, and opened a small hidden pocket on the inside lining. One Sonny had seen him touch only a few times in all their years together. Sonny frowned. "Elvis, you sure?" Elvis didn't answer. His hand disappeared into the pocket. When it came out, he was holding something small, something old, something he hadn't given away in years. And whatever it wasn't just an object. It was a memory, promise, a piece of his own past. Elvis stood beside the motorcycle, jacket warm under the Memphis sun, hand buried in a hidden pocket. His fingers closed around something small and familiar, a shape he had carried for years. He almost never took it out. Today, with a crying child on the curb, he knew he had to. He drew out a tiny leather pouch. It was brown and worn, with a frayed string and deep creases along the sides. It didn't shine or sparkle, but it looked like it had survived a lot of miles. Behind him, Sonny West saw it and stiffened. "Elvis?" he murmured, stepping closer. "You sure about that one?" Elvis didn't turn around. His eyes stayed on Emily and the torn cardboard box at her feet. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'm sure." He walked back toward the curb, boots crunching softly on gravel as the engine ticked in the background. The street felt strangely still, like the whole block was holding its breath. Even the cicadas seemed quieter. Linda watched from a few steps away, hands half covering her mouth. She knew this moment wasn't about her. She just didn't want it to end. Elvis crouched in front of Emily again. "Hey, sweetheart," he asked gently. "Can I show you something?" She sniffed and nodded, still hugging the broken box with one arm. He held the pouch out to her. "I've been keeping this safe for a long time," he said, "but I don't think it was meant to stay with me forever." Her small fingers took it carefully, like it might crumble in her hands. Up close, she could see every crease in the leather. Felt light but important, like a secret. "Go on," he whispered. "You can open it." Emily tugged at the string until the knot slipped free with a soft scrape. She reached inside and pulled out a delicate gold necklace. A tiny heart hung from the end of the chain, catching the light. There was a thin scratch across the heart, like a small scar. Her eyes widened. "It's so pretty," she breathed. Elvis nodded once. "A fan gave that to me a long time ago," he said. "There was a note with it. I lost the paper, but I never forgot the words." He glanced away for a moment, as if watching the memory float past. "For the little girl you used to be," he recited softly. "From someone who made it out." Emily stared at the heart resting in her palm. For a moment, the broken toys and the storm drain disappeared from her mind. So did the image of her father driving away. "This is for you," Elvis said. Her head jerked up. "For me?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied. "Because sometimes people leave, but love doesn't always go with them. This is to help you remember that you are worth staying for, no matter what anyone else does." The words slid into quiet places inside her that had no names yet. Linda wiped her eyes with the back of her wrist. Sonny turned his head toward the car, pretending to check the door, giving them a small circle of privacy. Why do some sentences sit in the heart longer than any apology? Why do some small gifts feel heavier than the people who gave them? Elvis lifted the chain gently. "May I put it on you?" he asked. Emily nodded. He moved behind her and fastened the clasp at the back of her neck. The gold heart settled against her chest, warm from his hands. It flashed softly each time she took a shaky breath. "There," he said softly. "Now you've got something that can't fall into a drain." For the first time that day, her smile reached her eyes. Her hand went straight to the necklace, fingers curling around the tiny heart like it was an anchor. But Elvis wasn't finished. He turned to Linda and reached into his jacket again, pulling out a folded slip of paper and a pen. He braced the paper against his palm and wrote a phone number in slow, careful numbers. He handed it to her. "That's a private line at Graceland," he said. "Not the one the world uses. You don't call it unless you really need it. But if you're ever in real trouble, you call. Day or night." Linda stared at the paper like it was a rope thrown to someone in deep water. I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to," Elvis replied. "Just keep going. And help her understand she was never the reason anyone walked away." Emily's thumb brushed the tiny scratch on the golden heart again and again. The street was still the same. The bills inside the house were still the same. Her father was still gone. But something in her had shifted. On that quiet Memphis afternoon, with no cameras and no crowd, a worn leather pouch had turned into something priceless. And none of them had any idea that this small necklace would one day sit under bright lights again, with the whole world watching. 35 years passed, but on October 12, 2010, the story found its way back into the light. Nashville's autumn air was cool that morning, crisp enough to feel like a page turning. Inside a modest community center, nothing fancy, just beige walls and folding chairs, a charity auction was preparing to raise money for a children's music therapy program. Volunteers taped signs to tables, tuned donated guitars, and arranged small items on velvet cloths. Near the front stood a shadow box. Inside it, resting on deep blue fabric, was the gold heart necklace. The scratch across its surface still showed under the lights. Beneath it, a yellowed note, given by Elvis Presley to Emily Carter, August 18, 1975. People leaned close, whispering. Some doubted it was real. Others swore they'd heard rumors about Elvis stopping for a child in Memphis back in the 70s. A local paper had even mentioned an unconfirmed sighting, though no photos ever surfaced. Still, the artifact felt different, worn, delicate, almost warm. At the back of the room stood Dr. Emily Carter. Her hair was neatly tied. Her badge identified her as a pediatric therapist, and her hands were clasped tight behind her back. She didn't want to draw attention. Today wasn't about her. It was about the kids she worked with, the ones who felt forgotten, unseen, left behind. The same way she once felt. She could have kept the necklace forever. She could have locked it away, guarded it like treasure. But how long can a memory stay only yours before it stops growing? How many children needed music, needed comfort, needed the kind of kindness she once received? So she donated it. A TV news crew from Channel 8 entered the room, cameras humming softly. A reporter approached her. "Dr. Carter, is it true this necklace was given to you by Elvis Presley himself?" Emily took a breath. "It is," she said softly. "But that's not the important part." The reporter blinked. "What is the important part?" "That it helped a hurting child once," she replied. "And now it can help more." Her voice shook just a little, but she didn't hide it. Pain shapes truth, and truth sometimes needs trembling edges to be heard. People gathered as the auctioneer tapped the microphone. A hush fell across the room. Chairs creaked. Someone whispered, "This one's gonna go high." Emily stared at the registration sheet placed beside the stage. Names, numbers, handwriting. She scanned them without thinking, until one name made her breath catch. Carter. Mark Carter. Her father's name. Her fingertips froze. Her heart thudded once, loudly. A ghost she never expected to see again had walked right back into her story. On the day she let go of the only thing she once believed could keep him close. The auctioneer lifted the gavel, and Emily realized the past wasn't finished with her yet. When the bidding began, Emily felt the room tilt. Not physically, but emotionally, like the air had thickened. Voices rose one after another, crisp numbers bouncing off the walls. The necklace shimmered under the warm lights, no longer just a childhood memory. Now a symbol the whole room wanted to hold. But she wasn't looking at the necklace. She was searching the crowd. And then she saw him. Mark Carter stood near the aisle, hands folded in front of him, shoulders hunched the same way they used to when he didn't know what to say. His hair had gone gray at the edges. His jaw was slightly unshaven. His eyes were locked on the stage, not on her. Emily's heart thudded like it did when she was 7. All those years, all those unanswered questions, all those empty driveways she waited beside. Did he come for the necklace? Or for her? The bidding climbed higher. 700, 800, 850. A murmur spread across the room. People weren't buying gold, they were buying a story. A moment frozen in time. A tiny heart that once sat in a crying child's hands and whispered that she mattered. Mark raised his hand slowly. 900. Emily felt her breath stick. He wasn't buying it for resale. She saw it in his eyes. It was guilt, memory, regret, and something else, something fragile, almost apologetic. But another bidder stood up. 1,000. The room gasped. Even the auctioneer paused, eyebrows lifting. This wasn't supposed to be the big-ticket item of the day. Yet the story made it priceless. Mark hesitated. His lips parted slightly. His hand rose again, then lowered. He couldn't compete. Emily felt a strange ache settle in her chest. For a moment, she wanted to run to him. For another moment, she wanted to run away. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold! Applause filled the room. Loud, warm, hopeful. Emily blinked, realizing she was smiling. Not because of the money, though it would help countless children, but because she felt something inside her finally loosen. After the crowd thinned, Mark approached her slowly. He didn't speak. He just slipped a folded note into the donation box. This time it had a real return address. Emily touched the paper gently. Sometimes the smallest gifts carry the loudest echoes, and sometimes the echo finds its way home. If this story touched you, share it with someone who still carries an old memory in their heart. You never know whose life one kind moment might echo into. And if you were there, or if you've ever held on to something small that saved you, tell us your story below. We're listening.